Hi everyone, and welcome to the final Get Finance Fit event for this year, Tips to Save More Money. Before we begin, I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country. The University of Queensland acknowledges the traditional owners and their custodianship of the lands on which we meet. We pay our respects to their ancestors and their descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country. We recognise their valuable contributions to Australian and global society. So welcome everyone to this Get Finance Fit event. So my name is Tara O'Kane and I'm on the UQ Young Alumni Board, and in particular, I'm part of the Young Professionals portfolio and look after organising these events for Nina. We're very excited to have everyone here for this final event for the year. I'm very excited to have Effie and Andrew here with us today. So you'll probably all recognise Effie and Andrew. They have been part of this series for a while and part of all our other webinars this year. So we're very excited to have them back with us. So if you don't know them, I will do a quick introduction. So I'll start with Effie Zahos. So Effie graduated with a Bachelor of Economics in 1990, and she's the editor-at-large, CanStar, Channel 9 Today Show's finance expert, and former editor of Money Magazine and UQ alumni. So welcome, Effie. We're always privileged to have you here. And we've also got Andrew here with us today as well. Andrew Courtney graduated with a Master of Commerce in 2012 and is the Director of Plentitude Wealth and Plentitude Lend and UQ alumni as well. So welcome, Andrew, as well.
Thanks very much for having me.
No problem. So this event is going to be a slightly different format to some of our other Get Finance Fit events. So to give everyone an idea of what's coming in this event tonight, we're going to start with Effie and Andrew having a discussion about the psychology of money. We're then going to move on to them sharing some of their tips to save more and then some tips to earn more as well. And finally, we're going to finish with a Q&A. So a number of you have already submitted questions as part of your registration process for this event. But if you have any questions throughout this event that you'd like answered, please use the Q&A function here in Zoom, or you can also put it in the chat, but we prefer it if you can put it in Q&A, and we'll try our best to answer a mix of the pre-submitted questions and also the questions that come through live this evening. So with that, I might kick off and hand over to Effie and Andrew to talk about the psychology of money. Over to you both.
Thank you so much, Tara. Hello, everyone. And hey, Andrew, it's always good to do webinars with you.
Always a pleasure. Absolutely.
Yeah. What did you think of the answers to the poll questions? I was quite surprised, actually. I mean, I did jot them down. So majority are earning between that 80, oh, thanks, Tara, between that 80 and 150K, which is not, that's a good income. That's a very good income. Yet 81% are feeling stressed.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
It is really interesting.
Kicking in, isn't it? And maybe some of the media as well, kind of stirring up a bit of a storm inside our minds, which leads into the psychology of money too.
You can't blame the media, Andrew. Seriously, like, come off it. Look, absolutely, yeah. I'll take some blame for that for sure. Maybe it was interesting to see. Also, I noticed, jotted down the credit side of things. 57% said no credit, which is great, but then there was a mixture between credit cards and buy now, pay later. So I found those results interesting, but not too surprising as well. And look, Tara, you said you wanted to start off with I guess, the psychology of money. I'm not a behavioural economist, but I have worked with several, and I've written about it in a couple of chapters of my book. And I'm updating one now and going back to some of that. And it's interesting, like when it comes to your money, I often say, money's not just about dollars and cents. It's also about those voices in your head. And I based a whole book basically on that, these voices that we do have in our head. And the most important thing is what drives your money behavior. I think once you understand what drives your money behavior, then that will answer a lot of your questions, because it's why we do something rather than how to do something. I mean, Andrew can sit here all night and give you strategies and to do things, and this is the formulas, and this is what you got to do. But if behaviorally, if you can't implement that, then forget about it. You're not going to get anywhere. So you really need to have that conversation with yourself. And it may be something as simple as, I earn $150,000. Why am I still feeling broke? And a lot of that comes down, they say really our behavior is set in the first 7 years. So you can blame mum and dad maybe. I do go through money personalities, and I think it's important to understand a little bit about yourself in that regard, because if you know your personality, that at least helps you become a little bit more proactive rather than just react. And then there's also a whole lot of marketing mind games out there that do play on you. And a lot of them can be as simple as, you know, and I've said this before, and it might have been in one of the webinars, and jump in, Andrew, anytime if I'm hogging this space here. But there is such things as like anchoring prices. There are things out there that really can play on your marketing mind games and make us do decisions without us actually understanding them. And that anchoring one is a really good one. If you've ever been, just had a look, I think it was National Geographic did a great example where they put under video some people going in to buy some popcorn. They only had two prices, a cheap one and a dear one. Everyone went to the cheap one because they thought, oh no, that's way too expensive, I'm not going to buy that. Then they put in a third popcorn in the middle, and that was the anchor price. So it was like, I think $6.50 or something, instead the large was $7. And everyone said, oh, it's only 50 cents more and I'll get the large one. That's anchoring. That changes your behavior, and that's everywhere. I think I've got one slide up there, Nina, just to show some of those marketing games. If I can dump that in there, if you can get onto that one. I'm not quite sure where that is, but there is yeah, thank you. And that quote there is spot on. You can justify basically any purchasing decision, you know, and it seems the more irrational, the greater the justification. And a lot of those cases, I'll go straight to that buy now, pay later. I know a lot of you don't have that, which was good. I think 20% had that. But that is a very clever marketing tactic whereby it plays in our behavior, where instead of seeing something $3.99, you see it at $99 and you go, yeah, I can afford that. That's easy. And you may think it's harmless, but it's actually causing you to spend. You may not have spent, and then it locks you into a repayment where then it stops you from saving somewhere else. And these are all some other little tactics you'll see. That the separate shipping, 28 sounds expensive, 24 doesn't, but read the fine print. Well, you've got the $2 shipping there as well, the $4 shipping, sorry, there anyway. Paying up front, clever, really smart idea with Uber. You don't have that pain of paying later. You've done it up front and you don't see it. It's all online, you know, and there's no pain of doing that. So without spending this whole webinar on behavioral economics and why we do what we do, it's really important to try and understand what your behavior is, what are the triggers, and put fixes in place.
Awesome. Thanks, Effie. Just to kind of chime in with some of my 2 cents there. Look, money, I always say money is an amplifier of who you are. So what you need to do is work out what is your financial story. As Effie alluded to earlier, it's very, very important to understand the influences you have in your life, right? So if you understand what your parents are all about, it may trickle down, right? Unfortunately, some of us are unlucky to have parents who aren't very financially savvy, guilty, right? So some of us are lucky to have financially savvy parents who don't make it a taboo subject and talk about finances in the dining room table, right? Where they start to share some of the good habits that they've kind of learned throughout their life. So what you need to do is take a step back and audit what you're currently doing. How good are you in terms of your money management, right? And just work out, well, are you spending from living from paycheck to paycheck? And is that a habit, or is that an action that actually serves you well in the future, right? Because we're hedonistic individuals, right? So we're typically attracted to pleasure and we stay away from pain. So what I suggest you do is play a bit of a mind game with yourself, and every time you make a conscious decision to buy something and you justify it because in our weak moments, I tell you what, it's very easy to justify these purchases, right? What you need to do is work out a little trick that you can play with yourself. Now, every single person's different, right? But maybe ask yourself a quick question. Will this allow me to go to the European trip that I've been meaning to go to for the past 5 years? Will this allow me to send my children to private school? Will this allow me to, I don't know, buy a car or save up for a deposit for a house or make that extra contribution to super, whatever it may be. So you need to be goal orientated, and then potentially, right, use that as a force to keep you away from those quick and easy purchases that the market is tend to kind of encroach upon our lives, right? Because that's what they do best, right? They understand the fact that we've always got this FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. It's one of the things that if I can stamp that out of society, it would be an amazing result. And obviously, keeping up with the Joneses is another one, right? So you need to make sure that you audit yourself, and you need to understand how your brain ticks, basically. Because if you don't have those habits intact and audited every 6 months, 6 to 12 months, and Effie's going to be showing you some really cool tactic that'll save you thousands of dollars per year a little bit later. So look out for that, right? What will happen is you'll get better. And what you need to do is you need to compare yourself to your previous self, right? And start building momentum. Right? If you can get small wins and make that little 1% change every single month or every single quarter or every single year for some of us who are a little bit lazier, right? And you know what happens is you start to build like a better momentum for yourself, and you start to build acceleration for the future, right? So your psychology is crucial, because what will typically hold you back from making the right decisions in your life is in between your ears, right? Very, very important to keep that on point. And read books like what Effie has written. Read books like Scott Pape, Barefoot Investor, and really start to engross yourself into these particular options. Because if you don't do that, who's going to do it for you?
Yeah.
And
I like, Andrew, I like what you said about giving yourself that reward, because we do want a bit of reward. That's just natural. And if I can just give a little example how you can work in that practically, sorry. Look, a lot of us, if you are working, may find you're going back to work. You may be working, back 2 days a week or whatever your setup is. We're probably, not going back full time. And you've probably formed some good habits at home, meaning you're making your own lunch at home. Now you've saved so much money, you think this is great. I can tell you now, going back to the office, you may slip back to your old habits. It's very easy to break those habits, and you start buying your lunch there. A way to reward yourself is every day that maybe you're back in the office only 2 days a week, 3 days a week. Every day you bring your lunch into work, pay yourself that $15 or that $20, whatever you would have spent in the city or wherever you do work. Put it into a specific account, your lunch account, call it that. Do that every time you bring your lunch into work. Before you eat into that sandwich or whatever you have, just go, I've got to do an online transfer, and pay yourself into that lunch account. Once you start seeing that money go up, you're going to be running to work with those Vegemite sandwiches like no tomorrow. It's a trick I use on myself. So a way to reward myself, and maybe label it like Andrew was saying. Is it I think you said holiday or something like that? What is it that, what's the opportunity forgone by, not doing this, and what are you going to get out of it? So yeah, that little instant reward helps me do things.
Yeah, without a doubt. You got to dangle a carrot, guys, because you can't keep scrimping and saving each and every time, because what happens is you tend to want to bust out of that thing and just go ham on whatever it is that you really love to do, right? So you need to just kind of reel yourself in somehow with these little games and tactics that Effie just shared with us, right? To keep you motivated and to keep a sustainable. The key thing is find something that's sustainable for you. You don't want to go hard too fast, because what's going to happen is it's going to blow up, right? So you want to do it incrementally, right? A quick story now. It's not a financial story, but it's a fitness story for me, right? I couldn't do too many push-ups. So 16 weeks ago, I decided to just do 2 per day. So did that for the first week. I upped it to 4. So I added 2 every single week. Been doing that. I'm up to 34 now. Right? So it's amazing what time can do if you can actually just slowly add a particular habit or a skill into your life, more importantly. And what happens is you start to build momentum for yourself.
Oh, we should have had a push-up challenge, Andrew.
I am up for it any day of the week, Effie.
Oh, 34, hey, okay.
Back in the day, you would have beaten me for sure.
Once, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the psychology of money. Hopefully, you guys have taken some notes on that. If you've got any questions, feel free to fire them at us in the Q&A section. But yeah, Tara, what's next for us?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Effie and Andrew. That was very interesting. I know I learned a lot in that section. So the next section we're going to move on to is hearing from you both about some of your tips to save money. So I believe that you've both prepared a few tips to share with the audience today. So maybe Effie, if you'd like to go first, and I think Nina, there's some slides to share. We'd love to hear your tips to save more.
What have I put in there? I've got thousands of little tips. Which ones did I actually focus on there? I think, let me just expand. I think I might have started off with know your triggers and put in your fixes. And then basically I might go into a bit of swap and save. I'd like to kind of carry on that. So look, when it comes to saving money, if I can just go through some of those slides, and let's go to the very first one. Let's run through some of these and I'll walk you through. We know now, we just had the RBA today come in. Interest rates went up by 0.25%. That's going to give more mortgage pain, and that's going to filter through to a lot of areas as well. Inflation numbers are going to come out. This is obviously the June quarter. It's old, but it does show why we're feeling this pain. You've got inflation at 6.1%. That's going to be firing right up over past 7%, 7.75 or something like that, I think was the forecast. You've got wages still sluggish. So our money is going backwards. And that is why a lot of us are feeling this pain. And so I think for me, the most important thing is with our regular household bills, if I can get into that saving, and I might jump straight into that slide, Nina, where we've got that cost comparison. What I see the most is regular household bills are eating into our budgets. There's no denying about it. And because we've got this situation where inflationary pressure has hit items that are mostly non-discretion, when you look at the data and you dig a little bit deeper, there are things that we can't avoid. We've got to put petrol in our car. We've got to put food on the table. We've got to pay our rent or our mortgage, whatever the case may be. So basically, what I did here is kind of with the CanStar team, we put together a comparison to show people just the power of your regular bills. So I do this twice a year anyway. Before this little calculator kind of came out, I would sit down, print out my statement and highlight all my regular expenses. What am I paying? How much better can I be? How much better can I be if I switch and save? And this goes into a bit of behavioral economics there. We don't do much about this because a lot of our regular bills, you think about it, think about your mobile, think about your car insurance. Maybe you pay your car insurance monthly, maybe it's annually. It auto renews and it just happens. So what I do is highlight all those regular bills and I check, what am I paying? What can I do better? So this actual table shows that when you look at what the average payment is for a household, this is what the average payment is versus going to what's the cheapest on CanStar's database there. You could save over $11,000 on just doing that. That's quite powerful. And I think households have got to start doing that. If you've not done that, then you've got to do that. So, to give you an example, let's say your home and contents insurance. If you're paying that, roughly about $2,000. That's the average. I can appreciate that if you're in North Queensland or if you're in a cyclone area, you'd be paying a lot more than that. But it shows that the cheapest on there, looking at value too. So they would have looked at features and their 5-star products to get that, because sometimes cheapest isn't best. You definitely don't want to just go for the cheapest home and contents insurance and find you covered for nothing. But seeing that swap there, you'd be able to save $690 per year on that policy. So we've done that for each of those bills, and that's where we get to that 11,000. So I think it's really important. Like I said, if you've yet to do this, do it. Have a look at it. The other thing is basically that's so the switch and save. The other thing when it comes to saving money is just have a look where your money's actually going. And I like to either delete an app that's costing me money, put in an app that's not costing me money, that's saving me money. So have a look at that. That comes down to your subscriptions that I was talking about as well. The other thing is just to be a little bit smarter. If you can go down, I had some graphics of some little piglets there. This just shows you, let's say you've got all your expenses working nicely. Let's say you've done all that I've just said, checking, can you switch and save? We are now entering an exciting period for savings account. I can't believe I said that because savings accounts have paid nothing. Your hard-earned income, finally, that money that you've got will be able to earn some money. So if you don't have a mortgage, if you do, then obviously the best place still is to put that money in your redraw account or offset. But if you don't have a mortgage right now, then probably, the only place you could have got a half decent return is you had to dial up the risk, put it in the stock market. The stock market is very volatile at the moment. So at least now some of your capital can be in a savings account and earn something. Is it going to rock your earth? No. The highest paying account is 4%. I think that's with the Bank of Queensland. And that's only if you're under 35. So I suspect quite a few of you are under 35. So lucky you get that 4%. If you're not, if you're as old as me, I think the best one there is about then 3.7. But this just shows now that if you are what we call lazy, and I don't mean that in any disrespect, but lazy in the sense that you don't care where your savings are. This is the difference that you could earn on $40,000. And why $40,000? Well, according to some data, this is RFI Global, that is the average amount that people that have saved, I think under 35 during the pandemic over the past period now, 40,000. So put it in a dud account, you'll only earn $20. Put it in an account that's paying the highest at the moment, that's $1,464. I mean, this assumes the interest rates don't change. You may not think that's a lot, but that's going to pay your home and contents insurance. That's going to pay one bill. So it does something. So just don't be lazy with where your money is. That's really important. There are a couple of tips with how to save. I think I've kind of touched on them pretty fast, but Andrew.
Cool. Unfortunately, I don't have any slides for you guys, so you'll have to bear with me here. One thing that I would love for you to consider post this particular webinar is to gamify your monthly savings. Right? I know it's difficult, right? But what you can do is if you can just beat your previous monthly savings, and if you can just audit how much you're actually pocketing, and ideally put it away, just like what Effie was saying, put it in a specific account, a little bit harder to access in an ideal world. Ideally, 2 barriers before you get there. If you can cut up that card to get access to it, get rid of the internet banking. You have to walk into the bank to withdraw. That's even better, right? Because what happens is it's a way to force your savings, right? And if you can beat the previous month's record, right? And what happens is you start to build back to the momentum, right? You need to build momentum in your life, especially in times like this. What you need to do is you need to make it fun somehow, right? Because obviously with 81% from the results that we had in the poll earlier, you're feeling financially stressed, right? So ask yourself, well, after you've done all of that stuff that Effie's just shared with you, obviously you need to go to that website, right? And you need to check that out and just go through step by step. That's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. As soon as you finish that, right, then you can start working out, well, what goes to you as a reward, and then what goes to for your future self, or as a buffer for potential future rises in rates or whatever it may be, because inflation is probably not going to stop for the next few months, right? So you need to keep that in mind, and you need to start building some buffers for yourself, right? If you can gamify that and ask yourself, how can you save $100 more, right? How can you lower your cost of like the food? If you can prepare food, like what Effie was alluding to earlier with the Vegemite sandwiches, fantastic. I had a time when I was probably about 8 years ago, I challenged myself to see how low my monthly food bill would be. And instead of looking at the monthly one, because that's quite a long time, I went down to just the one meal. What is my average meal per day? Well, cost of meal 3 times per day, basically, right? And I got it down to as low as $2 per meal. Now, I wasn't eating the best food in the world, but I managed to do that. I did that for 2 to 3 weeks, and I just showed myself that I can do it, right? This is a skill that you need to have in your arsenal, because if things get really, really tight, desperate times calls for desperate measures, right? So what I suggest you do is you ask yourself, well, what kind of skills do you have in your back pocket that you can pull out so that you can save yourself that extra $100, $200, $300 over that 3 to 4 week period? Yes, it may be a pain in the ass, but in the end of the day, if you can buy yourself some pasta and some pesto and potentially throw a few veggies in there, that's 6 meals at potentially $2 a pop, right? So if you can do that, and if you're sharing your house with some housemates, you don't have to eat pesto pasta like I did for 4 weeks straight, right? You can have some variety in there, because you can work together with your partner or with your housemates, right? So if you can gamify the current situation so that you get a sustainable outcome and build your skills while you're at it, what happens is you start to build momentum, build up your buffer, and increase your confidence, right? Because what I found most people lack is a buffer, right? If you can have ideally a minimum of 1 month's worth of expenses in a bank account ready for any kind of emergency, and work your way up towards 3 months and 6 months. And ultimately, if you can get to a cash position of 7 years, you can change your career, do whatever the hell you want to do, because you've got that buffer to see you through. Now, not everyone's going to get to 7 years, obviously. It's very, very difficult to do that. But if you can hit that 3-month period, what happens is it gives you massive confidence to pivot which way you can, because if you potentially lose your job, right, you can go find that next job in the next 3 months, right? So these are the key things that I'd suggest you guys do if you're trying to save a little bit more. Gamify, find something that's sustainable for your particular characteristics, right? Because everyone's obviously different. So for me, I like gamifying things. I like setting challenges for myself. So for you, if it's something different, we'll work out a way to get to what you want, and that's your carrot that's dangling in front of you, right? Set some parameters that will lead you to a better financial situation and put yourself in the best position to win, basically. Right, so those are my 2 tips.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Effie and Andrew. That was very helpful. So we've just heard about some tips to save more. So now on the flip side, I'd like to ask you about your tips to earn more as well. So maybe this time, Andrew, we might start with you. If you want to share some of your tips about how to earn more.
Awesome. Look, the market, I always say the market never lies, right? So your skill set will determine how much you make in the marketplace, right? And unfortunately, for some of us in this room, your skill set might be up here, but your communication's down here. So maybe you need to skill stack a little bit better. What does that mean? Well, you need to work on your communication skills to show that your skill level is actually up here, thereby allowing you to demand a little bit more from the company that you're working with, right? So what's skill stacking? What I suggest you do is you run or take a step back and audit what your current skill sets are. What do you bring to the table, and what value do you bring to the company that you're currently working for? Right. And in an ideal world, if you can get it down to specific KPIs that move the needle for that specific team that you're on, or division, or company-wide, whatever it may be, right? If you can work out how you move that needle in terms of revenue profitability, right, for the company that you're working for, then you can start building a case for yourself. Then you can start ticking some boxes and working out, well, what kind of skills do I need to add to my arsenal of skills to be able to demand a little bit more? What kind of results can I bring to the table, right, where they cannot help but say yes to a pay rise purely because you become, the skill sets that you've got is so unique in the marketplace that other people will hire you in an instant, right? That's what you want to get to. So you need to build towards resilience, essentially, right? If you can get the right skills in place, what happens is you start to become very, very valuable in the marketplace. Right. Obviously, this is something that you need to work on throughout your career, right? So what you need to do is work out, well, who's in front of you? Who is 1 year ahead of you? Who's 5 years ahead of you? And who's 10, right? And ask them the question, what would you do at this stage in your career? How did you get to the next level, right? You start asking mentors, you start asking your peers, potentially some peers who are 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, and work out, well, what's the secret sauce, right? There's obviously no silver bullet, but if you can kind of tease out those little skills that you need to kind of add to your arsenal, what happens is you start to build momentum in your career, right? Thereby allowing you to earn a little bit more, right? So that's one of the key things. So yeah, mentors I mentioned. Yeah, so you need to work out, well, what are you working towards, right? Some of us aren't really aware of where we're going. So maybe work out, well, do you want to dabble a little bit more? Do you want to work in a different kind of organization within the company? Do you want to sort of test and measure actually get your fingers in multiple pies potentially, and just work out what makes you tick, right? If you're past that, and if you know what you want to do, well, I'd be aiming to create a plan of attack to actually increase the output that you produce within the workplace, so that you become well known for delivering the goods, essentially. So that's my tips on being able to earn more, because look, in the end, all it takes is skills. Like, if you can get the right skills in place, what happens is you become extremely valuable. And if you can work with the right kinds of individuals and the right people who see value in those particular skill sets, they will never let you go. They will always want you by their side. They will always take you to their next gig. Like, I know a consultant, or he's an accountant, who's always been taken by the CFOs because he's so good at reporting. He's so good at analyzing data and bringing it all in the right reports, that makes the CFO look so good. Therefore, the CFO, every time he jumps ship, every 5 years or so, right, to a different company, he takes him along with him, right? And ultimately, he wants to become a CFO. Therefore, he's learning as well. There's a symbiotic relationship there. So what I suggest you do is work out what skills you've got, what skills do you need to attain within the next 6 to 12 months, work out a way to pay to learn those particular skills. You don't have to have your company pay for those things, right? Invest in yourself, because if you can build your skills up to a level where you become undeniable, what happens is the money will come.
Yeah, good point, Andrew. I know I had 2 different ones, but if I can just add on to that, I report quite a lot on the job market for today's show, and I have the luxury of looking at so much data that comes out either from Seek or Robert or Hayes, and it's so interesting what they're seeing. I was actually on a 2-day seminar the other day where there were some great experts in this field, and we've got such a tight labour market right now, and really, depending on what sector you are in, you really could be in the driver's seat, that's for sure. Depending, I mean, most of those sectors seem to be in IT, cyber security. I wonder why. There are certain occupations whereby you could name your price. In other cases, it's not like that. And then, we are talking about money here, but what's interesting, a lot of things don't drive us for money as well too. I know this is a money seminar, but, a lot of us are looking for being aligned with a company that we share the same value, that we have a buying in it. And so all that's important to have got to be weighed up. I think the important thing to understand is, what are you actually worth too? All those points Andrew was saying are great to get to that point, really important. But it could be as simple as, first of all, finding out, am I being paid my worth? And you can go into a few of those sites. They've got great calculators there, where you put in your job and it'll tell you what the average pay is in your area. And then at least okay, yeah, I'm being paid fairly, I'm not, or I could do better. It was interesting. Then Treasurer Josh Frydenberg said basically the best way to get a pay increase was to leave your job. Probably terrible news for self-employed businesses, because they are seeing such a flood of people going out, getting poached. And then it's that situation where you're staying at your job and you're thinking, everybody's leaving, should I be leaving too? And then there's these whole negotiations happening and so on. So the most important tip for me there is, know what your self-worth is. And that's going to take a bit of research to find out where you actually sit. And on the jobs front, I had a tip down about flexibility. I am seeing now if that you can't negotiate those pay rises, because there are some industries where you won't, they just don't have that profit margin in there, that they can't give you that. That doesn't mean it's the end of the game. You know, there are things happening now where employers are offering free health insurance. We hear that a lot in the US, but now it's coming here as well. And that's quite lucrative. I mean, you know, that's a couple of $1,000s per year and they're paying that. So, you know, you could look at that. You could look at salary sacrificing, different options they may have. You could look at probably a situation where you work 4 days a week, but get paid 5 days a week. That's another way of getting a pay increase. There are lots of things that you can put in place to negotiate that deal if it, you know, if it's not going to come down to cents and dollars for you. The other thing is just some cash on the side is have a look at the sharing economy. Andrew's talking about what skills you have. I do a lot of stories also with Airtasker, and I'm just so surprised what income is being earned on that platform. And it's a professional too. It doesn't have to be that, you know, well, I don't have a skill, I'm not a handy person, I won't be able to do gardening. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you have a skill in putting presentations together, if you have a skill in maybe you can tutor. What do you do in your job that you can translate and do online and help other people? You should be doing that. Of course, every income you do earn in the sharing economy, you've got to claim. So that's important that you do that. But just see what skills have you got and how can they be set as a side hustle for yourself. Moving forward, you are your most important kind of entity. And there are situations where, you know, I know the pandemic created a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of self-employed people, either by force or choice. A lot of people lost jobs. They had to do something. A lot of businesses close. It's not as easy. But there is situations now where businesses want that intra-entrepreneur and they're willing to pay for that. And you don't have that risk. You know, you can use their resources. You can get paid your holidays. You can get your super. But at the same time, you're you know, doing something for yourself within that business. The business world has changed completely to what I started off with. That's for sure. So have a look at that. And look, also, if you're after some quick cash, there's nothing like selling on Gumtree. That's my other tip. The Gumtree Circular Economy report that just came out said that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, gosh, was it around $7,000 that we've got lying around the house? So, you know, if you're really short on cash and you need a quick fix, sell everything in the house that belongs to you, not to other people. So, and I regularly do that as well. I go to markets, even, you know, someone like myself, I like doing it. I like cleaning out my cupboard. I like going to markets. I like selling it and putting stuff online, furniture and so on. So, you know, your trash could be some other person's treasure.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, sorry, Andrew, were you going to add to that?
No, I'm just agreeing.
Oh, no worries. Well, thank you very much for those tips, both of you, for earning more money. There's certainly some great ideas in there. So we've got about 20 minutes left. So we might start with some of the pre-submitted questions. And then to everyone in the audience, if you have some questions for Effie and Andrew, please submit them to the Q&A. I know Andrew's been answering a few of them in the Q&A already, and you can see that in the answered column, and you can see Andrew's responses. Otherwise, we'll just start with some pre-submitted questions. So Andrew and Effie, I'll ask a few questions, and then whoever wants to answer, feel free to jump in. So I might start with a question. Are there any tools or apps that you recommend for keeping track of your transactions or budget?
Effie's got this one for sure.
I have a few only because I'm updating my book. So I've gone through a few stuff here. I mean, first of all, the obvious place is have a look at, when's the last time you had a really good look at your own bank account online? A lot of them do have such amazing tools. They've got trackers and spending it. And because you're spending through them, they know what you're spending on entertainment. They know what you're spending on groceries. So it may be as simple as going to your own bank account first and having a look, but just some to explore. Have a look at Loot. It's a savings money tracker. Habitbull is a habit tracker. And, you know, you set up a habit. You might have multiple habits and you can save money each week. It keeps track for you. And Quitzilla. Maybe you want to quit one bottle of wine per week. I don't know what your vice is, but you can quit a habit, and it tracks that as well and motivates you. So you'll notice these act as little nudges. There is a lot. Just make sure you read that, you know, these are basically for free, these ones that I've given you, but just check, you know, your privacy. What are they doing? Where does it stack? And is it Australian or not? So I think Loot is Australian. The other two are not, but they're very good apps there. So there's some to have a look at.
Fantastic. Thanks, Effie. So the next question is, with Christmas just around the corner, what are your tips to avoid giving into the festivities and blowing the budget?
Look, it might be a little bit late now, but maybe start planning for 2023 right now. Start putting $20 away every single week and get rid of the pain, because I mean, I'm not a big gift buyer. So what I like to do is, if I find a gift in, let's say, September, October, or July for that matter, for a specific person for Christmas, I buy it straight away and get it out of the way, because I don't necessarily want to be going to the shops and battling it out, looking for the gifts last minute. So the more prepared you are, the easier it becomes, especially in the hip pocket. And stick to a budget. It's so easy, like what Effie was saying with the marketing out there. It's so easy to just go over budget. Oh, it's only $100. It'll be fine. But what happens is, if you do that over 10 gifts, well, that's $1,000 over, right? And if you multiply that out over a number of years in your life, you could be foregoing a bunch of compounding interest if you were to invest it elsewhere. Right?
Yeah, agree. Look, Christmas comes around so fast. I thought I heard something like, you know, well, what are we, 3 months or something away, aren't we? This is just crazy. And I believe Coles and Woolworths have got Christmas decorations or Christmas food out there already. Those, you know, merchandise, that's all out there. Okay, is it too late? Nothing's ever too late. But I definitely agree with Andrew that what you need to do is sit down, even this weekend if you can, put a list together. If you want to buy gifts for somebody, or maybe your extended family, I'm not quite sure what you want to do, put it down on paper, because you'll start what's the saying, make a list, cross it off twice or something. What's that Santa Claus thing saying? Check your list. If you, whatever, make a list. I guarantee when you put the full list, you're going to cross some of these names out, because you're going to add it up. If you put a budget next to it and say, okay, $20 for this person, $30 for this person, you're going to add all that up. You're going to divide it by your pay between now and Christmas. And then that's going to be a shock for you. Then you're going to reevaluate it all. And that's okay. You don't actually have to buy gifts as such. You can give gifts in another way. And I don't want to sit here and go all kind of hobby craft on you, but you can cook some cookies. You can do things all like that. But let's say you want to stick to giving some gifts. After you've done that list, you probably crossed it off, put some less people on there, and you've culled it a little bit. What you need to do then is put that saving plan into place if you can afford it. If you can't, then you look for those ways to make some cash, like we just said, either like on the share economy, sell some stuff to build in that Christmas buffer. The other thing is try and get as much bang for your buck. I'm a big fan of buying gift cards, even for them myself, so I can then buy the presents. And what I mean by that is that if you have a health insurance, if you have a telco provider, any type of utility, you can go online and they will have discounted gift cards. So to give you an example, I think the last one I looked at was Rebel Sports, 8% off. Coles had 5% off. Priceline, I think I can get 5% off too. So I would buy a $100 card, get 10% off. So I'm basically able to, you know, spend $100 for $90. That's some way to kind of get your more bang for your buck. You can buy discounted gift cards online. There's sites called like Voucher, and people sell their gift cards. They're not used, but they may be something. I don't like shopping at Sports Girl. Maybe that's it. I've got nothing against Sports Girl. That's just an example. And you might like that. So they actually sell it to you at a discount. It's kind of like a used gift card, but it's not used. So there are ways to kind of scrimp and save to get these presents across the line. But I think the most important thing is what kind of Andrew and I have both said is make that list, because that's going to determine what your budget is. Divide it by how many pays you've got. And then that's going to tell you, am I really going to buy all this? What are some alternatives now?
Yes. And make sure you look at what's the opportunity cost of buying these gifts as well? Right.
That's a good point, Andrew, because I don't get my kids gifts anymore. I mean, for goodness sake, they're 21, they're 16, they know Santa's not about, but I do buy them a small parcel shares, or I top up their ETFs. And that's basically all they get. And they know that. It's so exciting for them.
That's awesome. Love it. What we do in the family is, I mean, I've got a reasonably big family, and what we try and do is we just have dinner out, basically.
Yeah.
Just have dinner out, and at every occasion, birthday, maybe not so much Christmas because nothing's open, but yeah, we have dinner out, we have nice food, we spend some time together, and take it from there. Because I mean, look, like as far as I'm concerned, like the $50 gifts, you're spending at least 20 hours looking for gifts for everyone else, and those $50 gifts aren't really going to move the needle in terms of changing someone's life.
No.
So really kind of pick your spots.
It goes back to helping them all. Like cook a meal for them. If you have to Kris Kringle, there's lots of kind of budgeting ways that you can look online for Christmas. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Would $50 change someone's life? No. I mean, if you really want to change someone's life, there are even these great things that you can help pay their bills. There's things like bill vouchers or bill ferries where, you know, you can put a limited amount in there, $20 maybe it is, or something like that, and they can actually pay their energy bill. If you've got someone in your family that that maybe have been redundant, lost a job or something like that, I think we need to have a look at Christmas this year a little bit different and be mindful that people are doing it tough. We'll be probably hitting right high with inflation then. So I think, family, friends, get together, cooked meal, can't go. Unless I'm cooking, you'll be fine. It might not be that good.
Thanks, Effie and Andrew, for that. So the next question is, how do you decide between saving time or money?
Oh, that's your alley. Andrew?
So you're pretty much, you're paying through time or money. So it depends how much time you have and how much money you have, right? Because really in the end, you have to kind of, if you've got plenty of money, you typically value your time more. If you've got plenty of time, you typically value your money more. So it's really a question of what position are you currently in, and whether or not it's worthwhile delegating that out, because you have to, like, one of the key things that I cover off in the webinar, which there's a small plug, shameful plug here, in that what the top 1% executives do with their finances, right? So I cover that off in the webinar. They always look for the highest and best use of their time, right? So if you're not quite there yet in terms of your capital or your savings, right, you may have to invest that time to get the job done, right? If you're not, if you're in the middle ground, well, then you have to make a judgment call case by case, right? Because in the end, we've only got 24 hours in a day, 168 hours in a week. And if you live the average lifespan, we've only got, it's sad to say, we've only got 4,000 weeks, right, in our life. So you need to spend that time wisely, okay? So if you can build up enough of savings, right, what you can do is you can start buying some time back, so you can spend time with your kids, spend time with your partner, spend time with your loved ones, right, and do the hobbies and passions that you want to explore, right? If you're not quite in that particular position yet, well, you need to work towards getting enough capital to buy your time back. So hopefully that's a bit of a roundabout question. So I'd take it case by case basis, depending on what you're trying to achieve, and for each decision that you're making.
Andrew, can I ask, is there like a rule of thumb that you can outsource something because you can earn twice that amount? If you earn twice that amount, then what? Is there any rule of thumb you follow or not? It's just
well, look, as far as I'm concerned, I try and I'm building a business, right? So my best use of my time is getting in front of audiences, creating content, educating people, getting in front of potential clients, talking to these people, and training my team, right? So everything else should be outsourced as far as I'm concerned. So you need to ask yourself, because obviously that's the highest and best use of my time, right? I'm earning X amount. If I can pay someone X amount, well, that allows me to do more of this. right? So the key thing is to actually do more of this, because where people fall flat is they outsource everything and then suddenly they're out of cash because they're not doing all the highest and best use of their time, the activities that actually move the needle in terms of increasing their income or revenues, whatever it may be. So one of the key things that I always talk about, Effie, is with my clients is there's also this you have to think about your mental health as well, right? So in a family, in a household, if you've got a partner or if you've got a young family, tensions are high, right? Or all the kids for that matter, right? Tensions are high. Sometimes it gets to a level where resentment starts to creep in. And that is something that I always try and snap out straight away, get rid of it. Because any kind of resentment is poison for a relationship. So if you need to hire a cleaner to clean the house for 4 hours a week and spend, let's call it $100 to $150 to $200, right, per week, you may have to work out some of the different strategies that Effie and I just shared a little bit earlier to give you that peace and to take away the resentment in the household, right? So what you need to do is take a step back, talk to your partner, talk to your loved ones and work out, well, what is your ideal day? What's the ideal week look like, right? What are the things that you absolutely despise doing, right? And how, more importantly, ask the beautiful question of how can we achieve that particular outcome, right? Within the parameters that we've got at the moment. Maybe we can achieve 50% of it. And then we can gamify and work towards 55, 60% over time. And what happens is you start to live a much easier life because you don't want resentment and you don't want to feel kind of angry towards your partner or anything, any of those kinds of feelings, because that's where rifts tend to happen.
I'm just putting a note down now, Andrew. Cleaner, cleaner, ironing, yeah, I'm putting it all down. Yeah.
Chef, don't forget, Effie. Remember I was telling you about it before. Sometimes couples need a chef to come in. Treat yourself. It's important. It's important to treat yourself, and more importantly, you need to automate. You need to plan at the start of the year. Work out, well, what's the ideal lifestyle? What are the ideal lifestyle goals that you want in that year? And if you want a monthly date at $400 a month, well, guess what? You're going to have to put away $100 a week, aren't you?
Yeah.
If you want to go on a spa or whatever it may be, or a massage, or bring in a chef or bring in a cleaner, you need to basically take away those funds and ideally automate it and put it away so that it's not easily accessible. Back to the comment I made earlier, you shouldn't be able to just pull it out just like that. Right? Put some barriers in place to make life a little bit easier for you, and then potentially have an app, right? And then you see, oh, you got $4,000 for a local holiday that we've always wanted. And guess what? That's happening locked in every 2 years. Right? It's really as simple as that.
Fantastic. Well, we might have one more question before we wrap up. I might jump to one of the live Q&A questions that's come in. So an anonymous person has asked, I'll be moving out of home for the first time next year. Do you have any tips to save money in that initial big move and setup?
Dear Anonymous, I would be saving that while you're still at home. So is that what you mean? I'll be moving out of home for the first time. Do you have any tips to save money in the initial big move and set up? Well, make the most of your time in that house. Obviously, I assume you're not paying any rent or any payments there to your parents. It does cost a lot of money to move out of the house. The bond itself, 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, you've got to have that up there as well. And also, are you going into a furnished apartment? Are you not going to a furnished apartment? How's that going to work? What insurances will you need? Do you have contents insurance? There's quite a lot of costs involved. So I would sit down and basically work out what are my moving costs, because they will be in the thousands when you actually add in your bond that you need to put there as well. And depending on what rent you're paying, you're moving into a period, I'm not quite sure where you're going to be living, but we are having, we've got a rental crisis at the moment. And in Queensland especially so. So you really do need to see, well, what's my budget budget. How much do I need to be bringing in? What's your income? Is it secure? I don't mean to scare you or anything, but you do need to actually, moving out, you're going to have to create your own household budget now. So it's a case of sitting down and going through that household budget. That tool I showed you before, they're all the costs that you could be now looking at. And what percentage of that will be taken into your income? What is your income outgo ratio, so to speak? What kind of lifestyle are you going to have? I think the first thing is to sit down and do that budget.
Three words: freebies, lifeline, and share housing. If you can get those three things, from freebies from your parents, right? Lifeline for only kind of top up utensils, that kind of stuff, right? Because you can pick something up for like 50 cents a pop, or even less, right? $2 for a whole cutlery set, whatever it may be. You need to get scrappy, right? Very important. If you're trying to save money, you got to get scrappy, right? And then if you can share house, you can lower your cost dramatically, right? And yeah, that's how I do it.
I'd stay home.
Well, thank you very much, Effie and Andrew, for all of answering all those questions and all of your tips and tricks throughout the night. So we might start to wrap this session up now. I'm conscious we only have a few minutes left. So Nina, if you don't mind sharing the final slides. Great, thanks for that, Nina. So if you haven't already, please check out Effie's book. And also Effie has a podcast, The Real Money with Effie Zahos, and you've got the link there as well, or you can follow her with her handle down the bottom of the screen. We're always very privileged to have Effie presenting with us at these sessions. So yes, if you want to follow Effie, you've got all the links there. And then for Andrew, I know he already mentioned a bit of a preview for that webinar he was talking about earlier in the session. So follow Andrew on Instagram. His handle's also down the bottom, and you've got the link to the webinar that Andrew was talking about. Before we close out, Andrew and Effie, is there anything that you wanted to add or any final words?
I guess for me, it's to have those conversations with yourself. You will have questions going through your head. It's a matter of you sorting those ones out. And we all do have those voices. I would try and knuckle down and get some of those answered. And it can be as simple with the cost of living moving forward. It's as simple as setting some time aside to be with yourself and just work on your finances. Sounds boring, I know, it really does. But once you're in there, it'll only be an hour, it'll only be 2. Make it very simple. You just hit one thing off at a time, and you'll be finding that once you start, it's very contagious, you won't stop.
Awesome. My tidbit is know exactly where you are today. Know where you want to be. What does point B look like, right? And take massive action to propel you towards that. It's really as simple as that, right? Work out what resources you need in your life, right? What books, what podcasts, right? What videos do you need to watch? What people do you need to work with to actually speed up the process of achieving your ideal version of your life, basically? So that's really the key. I think a lot of people tend to meander along life because they don't know where they want to go, and they don't even know where they are, right? So if you can take a step back, audit exactly where you are today and where you'd like to be, and come up with a bit of a plan of attack, and talk to your parents, talk to your peers, talk to people who are constructive and can provide you some feedback on how to get there faster, I think you'll be in a much, much better place than trying to work it out on your own, right? There's merit in standing on the shoulders of giants. Right, so work out who you need to follow, who you need to work with, right, to speed up the process of increasing the output that you're producing in your life.
Thank you very much for those final words, Andrew and Effie. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining the event tonight. On your way out, there'll be a 2-minute survey that we'd really appreciate you filling out. This session is also being recorded, and it will be shared by email next week. And keep an eye out as well for some of the upcoming UQ Young alumni events that will be happening in the remainder of the year, and details of those events will be shared soon as well. So thank you again, everyone, and I hope you have a great night. Thanks again, Effie and Andrew.
Thanks so much. Thanks,
everyone.
Andrew, Tara, and Nina. Bye.
Looking forward to catching up next year.